Hello! The end-fed half-wave antenna. It's a popular choice amongst discerning amateur radio operators, so I thought I'd make a quick video taking you through my particular setup and possibly make the mistake of fixing something that isn't actually broken. So, here we go. So this is my end-fed half-wave as it is at the moment. It's approximately 20 metres of DX50 Kevlar core antenna wire strung between two houses. It's got a 49:1 unun, which is there, and a 1:1 choke balun about 2 metres from the feed point, and I'll explain my particular setup as we go along. Now, my particular antenna is all homemade and has served me well for the last 18 months, but I have sat in the workshop this for quite a long time, and I thought I'd swap them out and see if there's any difference. It's probably going to go horribly wrong, so stay tuned. So this is the UKAntennas off-the-shelf end-fed half-wave. Specifically, it's the multiband version, which gives us 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres. However, they do have several options, including an 80 through 10 metre variant and some monoband ones and a shortened 80 version as well, but I'll leave a link in the website if you want to go and have a look. So that's what it is, but how does it work? Well, here's the M7EUP badly presented version of an explanation, as always. So let's start with the basic dipole then. The basic dipole is an antenna with two equal length elements. The centre conductor of the coax goes to one element and the shield of the coax goes to the other element. And around here at the feed point, the impedance is usually around 70 ohms. We've got unbalanced coax going into a balanced antenna, so we need a balun, balanced to unbalanced. And we use a 1:1 balun at this point to keep the radio happy. Okay, fairly simple, fairly easily understood. If we were to take the feed point and move it to one side or the other to give us an off-centre fed dipole, the feed point impedance here is closer to about 200 to 300 ohms. So we would actually need a 4:1 or a 6:1 balun at this point just to keep the radio happy, just to get that impedance matched. Now if we take this and move it right to the very end, we end up with one long part of our antenna there, and the feed point impedance here is closer to 2,500 to 3,000 ohms. And also the other thing to consider is that this is now a very unbalanced antenna. So instead of having a balun, balanced to unbalanced, we need an unun, an unbalanced to unbalanced. 2,500 to 3,000 ohms. We're going to be looking in the region of a 49:1, put it over here, 49:1, or maybe even a 56:1 unun to get that feed point impedance down to something more manageable that the radio is going to be happy with. However, you do know that we've also got essentially only half an antenna here. So, fresh piece of paper. Right, we have our coax, centre point and shield. We have our 49:1 unun and our radiating element going off here. Where's the other half of the antenna? Well, the centre conductor goes through the transformer and out to the radiating element there, and the shield of the coax, depending on the model of 49:1 unun you get, you'll either have a little nodule on the side there or maybe a screw on the back which is connected to the outer shield of the coax. You do have a couple of options. Option number one is to add a counterpoise wire, but in my case what I do is I actually put a 1:1 choke approximately 2 metres away from the feed point, and then this then goes back to the shack and the radio. The reason we do this is the outer shield of the coax here is acting as your counterpoise. You don't actually need a separate counterpoise dangling down, but we do need to choke it off just to prevent any unwanted RF working its way back into the shack. And it's always a good idea as well to maybe have a 1:1 choke just at the point where the rest of the coax enters the shack, just to keep it all nice and clean. So you can have a counterpoise there, or you can actually choke the coax off approximately 2 meters away from the feed point, and the outer shield of the coax here will act as your counterpoise there. So what's the benefit of having one of these end-fed half-wave antennas? Normally, a basic dipole, you'd just have that on a mono band, on one band, so you'd need a 40 meter dipole, a 20 meter dipole, and so on and so forth. These, because of the way that they're fed and the way that they come into resonance on multiple bands, you can use it on 40, 20, 15 and 10 on this variant, or as I've said, you can get variants with longer wires that will do 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10. One thing you will notice is this thing here. I don't actually have one on my homebrew end-fed half-wave, but I'll just explain what this is. So this is it's actually a printout of a nano VNA chart, and here we have, I hope you can see the grey lines. Grey line here indicates the 40 meter band, this is the 20 meter band, this is 15, and this is 10. And if we were to draw out where this antenna comes into resonance, what you'll find is that it comes down here into the 40, goes back up, comes back down into 20, goes back up, comes back down just outside of 15, goes back up, and then comes down here quite a way outside of the 10 meter band. Here you can see that it's slightly outside of the band. Now this indicates that the antenna is probably a little bit short, and what you would normally do in these circumstances, a little bit long, and what you'd do is actually trim this down to bring it into resonance in the correct part of the band that you want to use. But because this antenna has been cut for 40 meters, and these are just side effects of it coming into resonance further down the band, we don't want to adjust the length of the antenna here. So what we can do is actually add around 5 or 6 wraps of our wire around 2 meters from the feed point around a former, which is about 20 or 25 millimeters wide. And that little bit of inductance that we add will actually have little effect on 40 and 20 meters, but will bring these back into resonance in the correct parts of the band. It just brings this 15 and 10 meter band back down in line on the bands that you want to use. So that's what that's for. If we go back to here, about 2 meters from the feed point, we have this little bit of inductance added here, and that's what that's for. Another benefit of this particular antenna is that installation options, you've got quite a lot available to you. You can have it as a sloper, you can have it as an inverted V, you can have it flat, you could run it around the top of your garden fence, and you always seem to get some reasonably good results. And the only thing that I would advise is making sure that the wire doesn't actually come back on itself at an acute angle, otherwise you might get some interference there, and it may start getting some reactance with itself. Right, I can't really avoid it any longer. I suppose I better get this thing installed, which is the next video. So thank you very much for watching this bit of the video. If you want to see me install it, test it, get it up and working, come back to the channel. If you want to be notified when that video comes up, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you've hit the bell icon so that you get notifications when a new video goes up. Thanks for watching. As always, I really appreciate your comments. I appreciate those people who take the time to actually watch the channel, and I appreciate your support. See you later.